So may the words of my mouth and the thoughts of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. So this is the set gospel reading today, the lectionary reading, the story of the wedding at Cana in Galilee. It's funny, it just happens to come along in the week when we as a family have just been to a wedding. We were at a wedding in Derby on Wednesday. They didn't run out of wine. They didn't run out of anything. There was lots and lots of everything, including quite a few miracles, I may say. Miracles like finding somebody you want to spend the rest of your life with. Miracles like meeting up with people that you've been friends with all your life and still are. Miracles like all the new babies in the families that have come along since the last time you were all gathered. You know, those sorts of miracles, which I suppose you could redefine as a combination of life choices and chance meetings. But then, what is a miracle? Where do you see miracles? I see them all over the place. So the Bible story is a story about a wedding. And it's a lovely little insight into day-to-day life of the time. It's about a couple. It's about two families that join together. It's about a neighbourhood, a community. And all of that could be said to be a miracle in itself, couldn't it? The fact that all of these people gather together and have such a wonderful time. Just watch the news. Watch the news today of how people struggle to come together and keep on failing. We need more friendship. We need more sense of neighbourhood, more sense of community, more sense of identity. And if only we had those things, if only we could just like each other a bit more, the world would be a better place, more peaceful, more hopeful. That, by the way, is one of the reasons that I still believe in church, because it brings people together. It offers real hope wherever it is. Anyway, we've got this little story that we've just seen, which only appears in John's Gospel, by the way. We've got the family, we've got the neighbourhood gathering, and we've got Jesus and his mother and the rest of their family all there amongst the guests. So the obvious question, isn't it, is why are we being told this story? In 33 years, Jesus must have had lots of days out. He probably went to quite a lot of weddings. So why write about this one? What is it that we're supposed to notice about the story? Well, I just want to think briefly about a few things. And first of all, the obvious thing, the wine. Now, wine is not the easiest thing to talk about in a Methodist church. I'm personally not teetotal, but some people are, and it's very important to them. And Methodist church buildings are alcohol-free and safe for anyone who has a problem with alcohol. And to me, that's a really important principle. And every time it gets challenged, every time somebody says we ought to have a bar in the church so that more people come in, or whatever it is they say, I always vote against that, because I think it's really important to keep a safe space in a community for people who need it. But it does create a bit of awkwardness when you start talking about wine in church. Now then, wine in the Bible is a symbol. It's a symbol of blessing. It's a symbol of the generosity of God. It's a symbol of new life, prosperity, transformation. Through John's Gospel, there's also communion going all the way through the story. If you read it and think, what is this about? Where do I see communion? You actually see it all the way through. The Gospel is full of the bread and wine of the Eucharist. So there's all that underpinning the way John tells this story. But I also want to take you back to the word transformation, which we looked at last week as part of our covenant service, you may remember. And we thought about that reading from St. Paul's letter to the Romans, which goes, "Do not conform to the standards of this world, but let God transform you inwardly by a complete change of your mind." And we talked about God transforming us at this church. Another way of looking at John's Gospel is to say that it's a story of transformation. So the story that we've just watched is highly symbolic. It's about Jesus transforming life, transforming a basic, normal, everyday gathering into something inexplicably amazing. And you can apply that all over the place. You could apply it to a communion service, to any kind of gathering, to a wedding that you've been to, or a family party, or anything. The presence of Jesus takes it to the next level. I don't know what the precise words are to get this across, but that's why this story is included in the Gospel, because it's talking about this important thing about Jesus, that when he's there, everything gets taken up a notch. Everything is amazing, everything is wonderful, because he transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. A few years ago, I had a church that had a girls' brigade, big girls' brigade, that liked to come in and sing songs and things like that at parade services and so on. And so I learnt with them the song, "You Raise Me Up." You know the one I mean, don't you? "You raise me up so I can stand on mountains." Is it Boys Own or something? Boys Own? I can't remember. Anyway, you don't know either, it doesn't matter. And they sang it beautifully. "You raise me up," they sang. And at the end of the service, some miserable so-and-so said to me, "That wasn't a church song. Why did you teach them that?" Slightly missing the point. John wrote his gospel based around symbols. His gospel is not an attempt to tell the life story of Jesus, which is one way of looking at the other three Gospels. And by the time John wrote his, the other three Gospels were already circulating, weren't they, around the churches. So John did something else. John's story is a story based on signs and symbols to help us ask ourselves, who is Jesus? Is he important to me? What does he do for me in my life? And those kinds of questions. So what are the other signs and symbols in John's Gospel then? Well, there's the raising of Lazarus from the dead. There's the washing of the disciples' feet. There's walking on the water, miraculous catch of fish, and so on. The structure of the gospel hangs on these signs and symbols. You could say some of these things are a bit weird, couldn't you? Things like walking on the water. And they're things that, in a way, are not essential. They didn't really need the extra wine at the feast, did they? You know, if there wasn't any more, they probably wouldn't have bothered. People wouldn't have walked out, would they? They'd just have had something else. I don't know what they had in those days. Did they have lemonade or something? But they'd already had plenty to drink. So it wasn't essential, and it's this thing about Jesus taking things up a notch, just making it all better, making it all amazing, taking things to the next level, transforming the ordinary. That's what the story tells us, which confronts us with a couple of questions. Is this what you see when you read the Gospels? Is this the kind of Jesus that you meet? Does he do that for you? Does he change your life for the better? Does he come into your ordinary, which is okay, but take it to the next level? Is that what he does for you? Does he change your water into wine, or however you want to put it? We are still officially in the season of Christmas and Epiphany, even though things have got back to normal, as people say. Are you back to normal, they say, don't they? That on about the 27th of December. The Christmas trees have come down, they've been recycled or put away or whatever, but nothing has got back to normal, has it? Because how could it ever? After a story such as the Christmas story, how could anything ever be normal again? The incarnation is God's glory revealed in everyday things. People out in the hills doing their ordinary job, hear angels singing. Academics studying the universe leave everything behind, taking their most treasured possessions with them, and give it all to a baby in another country. Sometimes we hear or see something and we just know this is extra special. This is a God moment. This was God. In a moment, our next hymn will be, "Here is bread, here is wine." Now, there are many different understandings in different traditions about what the bread and wine is at communion. But as you sing those words, just think about it. It's more than just bread and wine, isn't it? Or we wouldn't be doing it. So here is bread, here is wine, but use your imagination and let God do the rest.